What if your business ran so smoothly it could be replicated 1,000 times and still feel exactly the same? In today's episode of The Bookish Mind, we explore the turnkey revolution and how Ray Kroc changed the way we think about business forever.
Welcome back to the deep dive.
Great to be here. And yeah, this topic, it's one of those things that's hiding in plain sight almost, hugely impactful.
It really is.
Okay.
So today we're taking a deep dive, as we do, into some specific source material, and it unpacks this concept called the turnkey revolution. Now, this isn't, the Industrial Revolution or the Information Age, the kind of thing everyone knows by name.
Right, it doesn't quite have that same ring to it, maybe.
Exactly.
Oh.
It's less famous by name, but the sources we're looking at make a really strong case that its impact, especially, on small business in America, has been just as profound. Maybe even more so, actually, when you think about accessible entrepreneurship. And the way the sources frame it is, well, pretty compelling. It's mostly through the story of one person, really, Ray Kroc, and of course McDonald's. It makes this big idea feel very real, very concrete.
Absolutely. So our mission for this deep dive, it's kind of got a few layers. We want to really get under the hood and understand, okay, what is this turnkey revolution? Why do our sources claim it's so important, even if it's not a household name? We'll look at how it connects to franchising, how it basically reshaped that whole world. And maybe the biggest thing, what are the lessons here for you listening right now? Whether you run a business or you're thinking about it, or maybe you just want to understand what makes a big chunk of the economy tick.
And there's this underlying theme, isn't there? The sources really hammer this home. It's this kind of counterintuitive idea.
Yeah.
That the real product of a super successful business, it might not actually be the burgers or the pizzas or whatever it sells to you and me.
Okay. So what is it then?
It's the business system itself. That replicable, predictable way of doing things. That's the core product being perfected. It's a huge shift in thinking, really, with massive implications if you're trying to build something that lasts and grows.
Okay, let's unpack that, starting with defining this turnkey revolution. As you said, the sources deliberately set it apart from the big ones we all know, industrial, technological, information. We get how those changed everything. But turnkey revolution, yeah, it's not immediate recognition for most folks.
And that's the whole point the sources are making. The name isn't the important part. The effects are everywhere. You see it all over retail, services. The source material even connects it to systems theory, referencing people like Fritjof Capra.
Oh, interesting. The idea that a system is more than just its parts.
Exactly. That the essential properties come from how the parts relate, You can't just add up the pieces. And the sources basically say, okay, let's apply that thinking to a business. The turnkey revolution is about building a business as that kind of dynamic, integrated system.
And it's presented as having this almost transformative power.
Yeah, like really transformative. Taking a business from chaos and what the source calls disease, inefficiency, things breaking down, stagnation, and moving it towards order, excitement, growth, predictable growth.
So it's like the key to building a business that actually works consistently.
That's how it's framed. An ultimately balanced business that works.
Yeah.
The idea is that a lot of small businesses, especially those started by someone really good at a craft, like a great baker or plumber, they often struggle because everything depends on that person.
Right. They're working in the business nonstop.
Exactly. The turnkey idea shifts the focus to the system of doing the work. So the business can succeed even if the founder isn't, personally making every single pie.
Okay, so if this systems approach is so powerful, where did it start? Who kicked off this quiet revolution, especially for small business scalability?
Well, the sources point to a really specific moment, 1952. San Bernardino, California. Picture it. Sunny, dusty. A little hamburger stand. And this guy walks up. He's 52 years old, selling milkshake machines for a company called Prince Castle, Ray Kroc.
Just a salesman doing his rounds?
Initially, maybe. He had heard this little stand run by two brothers, Mac and Jim McDonald, was ordering a lot of his multi-mixers, like an unusual amount, so he went to check it out. Probably just professional curiosity at first.
But it turned into something much bigger.
Oh, way bigger. For Kroc, seeing that original McDonald's, he later called it a miracle. And this is a guy who'd been on the road for years, seen thousands of businesses. But this was different.
A miracle. At a burger stand, that says a lot about his reaction. What was so miraculous?
That wasn't that the burgers were gourmet. That wasn't it. It was the process. He said it ran like a Swiss watch. Things were fast, sure, but it was the efficiency, the low cost, and this is key, the sameness. Every burger was identical. Every portion of fries was identical, time after time.
Consistency. That was a miracle.
That was the core of it. And tied to that was his observation that, well, anyone could do it. He saw teenagers, high school kids, working together, each doing specific tasks precisely, under supervision. And they were handling these huge lines of customers who seemed happy to wait because they knew exactly what they'd get fast and cheap.
So he wasn't just seeing the food, he was seeing the machinery behind the food, the system.
Exactly. The source material is really clear. Kroc didn't just see a popular local spot. He saw that the McDonald brothers had, maybe without fully realizing it, created a money machine. A system built for volume, speed, consistency, low cost.
A money machine. That must have lit a fire under his salesman's spirit.
It did, but it seems like it was more than just, oh, I can make money here. The source says he was grabbed by this passion, this excitement for what this could be, a feeling he hadn't really had before in his career. This operational elegance just sparked something.
And he acted on it pretty quickly.
He did. He saw the potential, maybe saw the brothers weren't keen on massive expansion themselves, and he convinced them, pretty soon after that visit, to let him franchise their method. Not just the name, crucially, but their way of doing things, their speedy service system.
That distinction feels important, franchising the method.
It's central. And that was just the start. Kroc dove in. 12 years later, his drive led him to buy the brothers out completely. And from there, he took that perfected money machine idea and built, well, McDonald's as we know it, the biggest prepared food system in the world, all stemming from that moment in San Bernardino.
Which leads us to just how huge McDonald's became. It's the prime example, right, of this turnkey revolution in action.
It really is. And McDonald's itself, historically, wasn't shy about it. The source mentions they used to call themselves the most successful small business in the world.
A bit cheeky calling a global giant a small business.
Totally. But it speaks to the model, right? Replicating a successful small unit over and over. But the scale, it's mind-boggling. Looking at the stats the source gives, around the year 2000, it was a $40 billion a year business.
40 billion. Just let that sink in.
It's huge, and that was across nearly 29,000 restaurants worldwide, still growing fast back then, serving over 43 million people every single day in 120 countries.
43 million people a day. That's more than the population of Canada, served by one company's system every day.
And it gave them massive economic clout. The source said McDonald's accounted for over 10% of all restaurant spending in America then, and the average store, pulling in over $2 million a year.
Wow. And profitability.
Extremely high. More profitable, the source says, than almost any other retail business, averaging something like 17% pre-tax net profit across the board.
Those numbers are just staggering. And they built that in, what, less than 40 years from when Kroc got involved? The speed is almost as crazy as the size.
The speed and the scale, yeah, they definitely grab your attention. But the source really stresses. The big takeaway isn't just that McDonald's got huge. It's how. It's that Kroc perfected a model, a system, so effective, so easy to copy that tons of other people could use it too.
So it wasn't just about McDonald's success, it was about creating a blueprint.
Exactly. A blueprint that launched 1,000 ships, so to speak. Entrepreneurs in completely different fields saw what Kroc did and thought, hey, I could do that with my idea. The source says it started as a trickle, then became a flood, calls it Niagara Falls. This wave of businesses adopting the model.
And that's what fueled the massive boom in franchising we see today.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
By 2000, the source cites like 320,000 franchise businesses across 75 industries, doing $1 trillion in sales annually. $1 trillion. That was nearly half of every retail dollar spent in the U.S. back then.
Half of all retail spending going through franchises. That's incredible market penetration.
It is. And it wasn't just about money. Franchises were apparently the biggest employers of young people, high school kids at that time, over 8 million people working in franchises. So it created jobs too, not just owner wealth.
Okay, so huge economic impact. But you said Kroc's real innovation wasn't just using franchising, because that already existed, right?
Right. That's a super important distinction the source makes. Franchising itself, been around for ages, over 100 years before Kroc.
Like, Coca-Cola licensing bottlers or car companies licensing dealers.
Exactly. Those were mostly about distribution. You had a popular product, Coke, a Cadillac, and you let someone else sell it in their area. They were buying the right to sell your product using your product's brand name.
So what did Kroc do differently? What was the revolutionary part?
Kroc invented, or at least perfected and popularized, the business format franchise.
Business format franchise. Okay, that's the key term.
That's the engine of the turnkey revolution, according to these sources. This specific type of franchise is what caused that explosive growth at Niagara Falls. The source even mentions a period where a new franchise was opening every 8 minutes of the business day in the U.S.
Wow, constant expansion.
And the power of this specific model, it just jumps out when you look at success rates. Comparing these business format franchises to regular independent startups.
This is where the numbers get really stark.
Unbelievably stark.
Yeah.
The source points to U.S. Commerce Department studies from the 70s and 80s. They found that less than 5% of franchises were terminated each year, which works out to, maybe only 25% failing over 5 years.
Okay, under 25% failure in 5 years for franchises and independent businesses.
The source puts their failure rate during a similar period at over 80%.
80% failure versus under 25%. That's not just a gap, it's a canyon.
It really is. And that massive difference is the clearest proof, the source argues, of the power of this turnkey approach, this business format franchise. It shows the real economic contribution. And importantly, for you listening, it strongly suggests this systematic way of thinking holds huge potential for your business success, even if franchising isn't your goal at all.
That stat alone makes you really stop and think, what is it about that model that makes such a difference?
Right. So let's dig into that. The difference between the old trade name franchise and Kroc's business format franchise.
Okay. Trade name was about selling a known product, like Coke or a Cadillac. The value was in the product's brand.
Yep. The idea was your business succeeds because the product is successful. And the source admits, yeah, maybe that worked okay back in the day.
But not so much anymore.
Less and less. The source says it's way harder and more expensive now. Why? Because, as it puts it, brand names proliferate like snowflakes in a Minnesota blizzard.
Yeah.
Just too much noise, too much competition based purely on product brand. It's tough to stand out that way now.
Makes sense.
And tellingly, while overall franchising boomed, those older trade name franchises, their numbers actually went down. The growth was all in the business format type.
So the business format franchise, it's not just loving a name. What is it giving the franchisee?
This is the core of it. It gives them the entire system for doing business, everything. The processes, the standards, the equipment specs, the training manuals, the marketing plan, the whole operational playbook.
A complete, ready-to-go business system in a box, basically.
Pretty much. And it's built on a belief that flips traditional thinking on its head. Most people starting a business think success comes from having the best product, right?
Yeah, the best pizza, the best haircut, whatever.
But the business format franchise says, no, the real product isn't what you sell to the customer walking in the door. It's how you sell it.
The true product is the business system itself.
That's the aha moment. Kroc got this. For him, the hamburger wasn't really his product to the franchisee. McDonald's the system, the process, the consistency, the brand promise delivered through the operation that was his product. He was selling a working, predictable business model.
And the source says there was a most important reason he thought this way. What was it?
It comes back to Kroc himself. The source calls him the consummate entrepreneur. Huge dream for McDonald's, right? Coast to coast, maybe global. But he didn't have the cash. Not nearly enough for that kind of growth.
Classic entrepreneurial problem.
Yeah.
Big vision, small wallet.
Exactly. So the franchisee, they became his solution. They put up the capital, they ran the local store, they were the boots on the ground, they were the vehicle for Kroc's dream. And that changed his whole perspective. He started seeing the McDonald's system as his product and the franchisee as his #1 customer, his first, last, and most important customer.
The person buying the franchise package was his main focus.
Yes. And what did that customer, the franchisee, want? They weren't usually signing up because they dreamed of flipping burgers. They wanted to buy a business that worked. They wanted a path to success, a way to beat those terrible 80% plus failure odds. So their big question was simple. Does this thing work? Will it make money reliably?
So Kroc had to make sure his system was bulletproof. Better than any other option out there.
He absolutely had to. His focus shifted from just the food to perfecting the business system. Because he knew to make his huge dream happen, McDonald's couldn't just be a decent burger joint. It had to be a rock-solid business opportunity. Better, more predictable than anything else a potential franchise could invest in. He was competing for their investment dollars, not just customer lunch money.
Selling the dream of success, baked into the system.
Precisely. But the source suggests there was another, maybe equally powerful reason driving Kroc to obsess over making the system work so well.
Oh, yeah. What else?
It comes back to that brutal statistic again. Over 80% of independent businesses fail. Kroc, wanting predictable success across hundreds, then thousands of stores. He must have realized something crucial. For McDonald's to work everywhere reliably, the system had to be foolproof, because the average person buying a franchise, left to their own devices, statistically, they probably wouldn't make it work.
Ouch. So he couldn't count on finding thousands of brilliant entrepreneurs. The system had to carry the load.
Exactly. It sounds a bit harsh, maybe, but from a scaling viewpoint, it's pragmatic. He wasn't building it just for superstars. He needed a system that ordinary people, maybe first-time owners, could operate successfully.
But the genius move, the source says, was turning that limitation, needing a system that worked regardless of the operator, into its greatest strength.
Totally. Because he was forced to create a business system so good, so predictable that people would want to buy it, he automatically created a business that would work once it was sold, no matter who bought it. The system's strength guaranteed consistency, where individual effort often fails.
So that led him to this massive undertaking, designing a foolproof, predictable business.
That was the job. Not building something that needed him or any one genius, but building a systems-dependent business. Deliberately not people-dependent.
A business that could run without the founder needing to be there 24/7.
Exactly. And that's the huge difference the source keeps highlighting. Ray Kroc worked on his business designing, refining the system. He didn't get stuck working in it, flipping the burgers, managing one store day to day like so many small business owners do.
So he's thinking like an engineer, the source says.
Yeah, vividly, like an engineer designing a prototype for mass production. He was basically re-engineering the service business model long before that term was trendy.
Like Henry Ford with the Model T.
That's the exact comparison in the source. Kroc approached McDonald's like Ford approached the car, asking those fundamental industrial design questions, but about the business itself.
Like what sort of questions?
Questions like, okay, how can all the pieces of this business, the grills, the fry scoops, the order-taking script, the training methods, the cleaning checklist, everything, how can we design these components so they're cheap to make, standardized, and totally interchangeable?
Interchangeable parts for a business. How does that work?
Think of it like this.
Yeah.
Every piece needed to run a McDonald's. The equipment, the exact steps for making a Big Mac, the way you train staff, the store layout, how you order supplies, the cash register process. Each one is a standardized, predictable part, designed to fit perfectly with all the other parts and work the same way in any store run by any trained person, like a standard bolt fits any Model T.
Okay, standardize everything, make it interchangeable. What else?
Then how do you put these parts together? How do you document this whole system so it can be copied perfectly over and over? How do you make sure that McDonald's number 5,000 in Tokyo operates just like number 50 in Des Moines, delivering the same experience, same speed, same system quality every single time?
So he took Industrial Revolution ideas, mass production, standardization, assembly lines, and applied them to building and running a service business.
On a massive scale, yeah. Applying that manufacturing mindset to business development. And the reason for this relentless focus on predictability, he needed his business as a product to sell. And it would only sell and work long-term if it performed reliably everywhere for every franchisee. That meant building it from perfectly predictable components, testing and refining them in a prototype before rolling it out en masse.
And that perfected, tested blueprint?
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce.
That's what the source argues. That refined, repeatable model is the secret behind the business format franchise's success. It's the heart of the turnkey revolution. The secret is the franchise prototype.
The franchise prototype. Not just a successful first store, but a model designed for replication.
Exactly. The source says this prototype is where every successful franchisor builds their future, where the truly great ones plant the seeds of his fortune. It's the R&D lab, the test kitchen for the system, where everything gets built, documented, tweaked, perfected, until it's ready to be copied reliably.
And the reason we're digging into this, even if you listening never planned to franchise, is that the source claims this process of building the franchise prototype that holds the keys. The core principles you need to make your business work better, more predictably, even if it's just one location. It's about building something that doesn't depend entirely on you.
It's about designing for predictability from the start. Building a system that delivers, not just relying on your own skill or Herculean effort day in, day out.
Now, the source uses this really great story or scenario to tackle a common pushback. You know, people hear McDonald's as a model and they immediately think, well, fast food, maybe low quality compared to artisanal stuff.
Right, the conversation with Sarah, the pie shop owner. It's set late at night, she's exhausted, totally wiped out from working in her business all day, baking, selling, cleaning. Her tiredness really shows the cost of being the technician trapped by your own creation.
And when McDonald's comes up as a model, she balks.
She does, understandably. She connects it with, maybe cheap ingredients, mass production, the opposite of her careful craft. She even says her aunt, who sounds like a real dedicated baker, would hate the comparison.
It's a common reaction, isn't it? For anyone passionate about their craft, systemizing can feel like selling out, maybe, losing the soul.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the source gets that. It validates Sarah's feeling, acknowledges that lots of small business owners misunderstand the point about McDonald's. They think, oh, it's successful despite being low-quality food. They figure it's just marketing or buying power.
But the source flips that argument.
Completely. It argues the success isn't despite anything. It's because of a different kind of quality. The quality of the system, its integrity, its absolute rock-solid consistency, delivering on its promise every single time.
And it uses that hypothetical chat with Sarah's aunt to reframe things, comparing her love for pies to Kroc's love for McDonald's.
It's a neat comparison. It pictures Kroc as this guy with a really clear purpose, living in a world where things often don't work right, promises get broken, stuff is inconsistent, and then he sees this little hamburger stand and it just works. Exactly like it's supposed to, time after time.
And that precision, that predictability, it just blew him away.
The source says he was awed by it,
Yeah.
genuinely impressed by the perfection of the operation. He fell in love with the sheer enormity of the thing he called McDonald's, not just the food, the whole predictable machine, the system.
And the comparison to Sarah's aunt is that they both had this deep passion just for different things.
Yeah, it suggests there were kindred spirits, really. Both craftspeople. Sarah's aunt loved the craft of baking the perfect pie. Ray Kroc loved the craft of making the McDonald's system work perfectly. She loved producing an exceptional pie. He loved producing an exceptional, predictable result consistently across thousands of places. She loved the smell, the sight, the taste in her kitchen. He loved the sizzle, the efficiency, the clean look, the smooth operation of his creation. Both totally in love with their craft.
That shifts the focus, doesn't it? It's not pie quality versus burger quality. It's passion for perfecting the creation, whether it's food or a system.
Exactly. And the source admits, look, people can criticize McDonald's food quality all they want, ingredients, nutrition, whatever. But the one thing you could never say is that McDonald's doesn't keep its promise.
You know exactly what you're going to get.
Right.
Every time. Anywhere.
Every single time. And that consistency, that reliability across tens of thousands of stores, that's presented as its core strength, as business integrity. The source defines integrity as doing what you say you'll do consistently, or learning how. And by that measure, McDonald's delivering that same experience globally, that's incredible operational integrity. It does system-wide what most single shops struggle with.
So the model isn't about the food itself being the pinnacle, but about the system's quality, its integrity, its consistency in delivering a predictable experience at scale.
Precisely. They didn't just build a successful restaurant chain, they built an extraordinary way to create an extraordinary business. A systematic model others could copy. And that model, the business format franchise, rooted in the franchise prototype. It has reshaped huge parts of our economy.
And circling back to Sarah's aunt and Kroc, the source calls them two peas in a pod, right? Similar passion.
Yeah, he imagines them bonding over the details, her sharing secrets about fruit fillings, him about the perfect fry time, that shared love of getting the craft right.
But there was that key difference. The one that explains why one stayed local and the other went global.
The crucial difference was focus and scale. Sarah's aunt, the perfect technician, loved working in her kitchen, hands-on, making each pie perfect, touching a few people directly. Ray Kroc, also a craftsperson, but his craft was working on the system. He loved perfecting the system's ability to run smoothly in thousands of kitchens, touching millions with the same consistent attention to detail.
So same level of passion, maybe, but applied differently, one to the product, one to the system of delivery.
Exactly. The source calls it an order of magnitude difference. Not better or worse, necessarily a perfect pie has value, a reliable meal has value, but the scale is vastly different because one business revolved around the unique skill of one person in it, the other around a foolproof system designed on it for anyone to operate.
And the source material kind of hints it will explain how Kroc built that system, the nuts and bolts.
It does promise that, yeah. How he actually crafted something of that size. Our specific source material for today doesn't quite get into the step-by-step how-to of building the prototype. But the principle, the what and the why of the turnkey revolution, the business format franchise, that's laid out very clearly.
The core idea is there. The system is the product. Predictability comes from building a robust system, not just relying on talent.
Crystal clear. That's the fundamental takeaway. The power of this whole turnkey idea, shown by Kroc and the franchise boom, comes from that shift. The business system is the real product you're perfecting.
And if you design and refine that system like a prototype, making it predictable, replicable, you can build something much more stable and scalable than a business totally dependent on you or a few key people. Kroc just applied industrial design thinking to a service business.
It really makes you question what the most important asset of a successful business actually is. Is it the thing you sell or the way you sell it?
It shifts the focus, yeah, from the tangible product to the intangible but maybe more powerful operational blueprint.
So, for you listening, think about your own work, your own business. Are you mostly working in it, doing the core tasks, being the indispensable expert, or are you spending time working on it, stepping back, looking at the process? How could it be smoother, more consistent, less dependent on just you?
Remember that huge gap in failure rates. If building a system that works reliably, almost regardless of who operates it, dramatically boosts your chances. What does that say about businesses built entirely around one person's unique genius?
And here's a final thought to chew on from this deep dive. What would it actually look like for you to design your work, or your business, or even just a project, not just as a one-off delivery, but like a foolproof prototype? Something built, tested, documented so well that in theory someone else could replicate it thousands of times and get that same consistent quality result.
That question really gets to the heart of the Turnkey Revolution's challenge and its potential.
A powerful idea, definitely still relevant today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Ray Kroc, the Turnkey Revolution, and the business format franchise.
My pleasure. Always fascinating to explore these big foundational business concepts.